Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers! I'm excited today. First of all, I'm loving doing these lives, so I hope our travelers are loving it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
we're even live on Instagram. I see some people have joined in, so it's crazy.
well, that's good considering you pushed the live on Instagram button. But
I want to
we,
make sure it worked. Yeah.
yes, it's true. So I have to say, so this is airing on, I think, July 23rd for our podcast edition. And what's coming up on July 21st is, I'm going to butcher this horribly, so I'm warning, Lamas or Lug Hafnashov. I'm okay. It's the first harvest.
It's the first harvest. It's early spring harvest. Well, technically summer harvest. Yeah.
Summer harvest. So anyway, that is coming up. So for those that are harvesting things, congratulations, I
Yeah.
guess.
It's an important part of the turning of the wheel. It's celebrated usually with fine festival, feasting. It's a feast day and always fun. You can't go wrong with those. We love those.
That's true. And in Gatlinburg, we're going to be at Smoky Mountain Bigfoot, which is on the
27th. Saturday the
27th. It's a
27th.
Saturday. It's at the convention center there. That's, conveniently located across the street from the Tennessee Whiskey.
Oh yeah.
Thing. So I think I'm going to make sure I have a great time at this particular event. So
We've been at it quite a bit because we've been researching that area for the next book, which is coming very soon. Very soon. We will have pre-order information shortly. So
yes, and we're super excited about that. But do you want to bring on our guest today?
Yeah, because what we decided that, here we are, we're in Jinkies July, and we have been talking with a bunch of spooky people who are into all the spooky things. And we've also brought on a lot of paranormal experts. And we have a guy who's done it all here. And I'm excited to bring him on. And that is JC Creachbaum. Oh my gosh, here he is from Night Dreams Talk Radio, right?
That's right. Network, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And you've got your own show on there. I've been on it a couple times. Excited to have you here with us, which is completely different.
Yeah, excited to be here. I've known Mark. We've rubbed elbows over many venues over the years, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, Monster Fest and 100 other conventions and stuff. But you, let's tell, since Erika doesn't know you yet.
Yeah, no, this is my first time meeting you. I like that Mark's like, I've met and hung out with him 5 billion times. I'm like, cool. The rest of us haven't. So how about we hear a little bit about you, JC?
Okay, well, basically my paranormal venture started when I was a young age, 3.5, 4 years old. Of course, when I was that age, I was young and I don't know, just didn't know. I didn't know they were spirits that I were intermingling with, so to speak. But looking back, they were definitely spirits that I had encounters with.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah. And then all through my life, I've tried to, when you get the awkward age, puberty and teens, I didn't want to be worried about spirits and things. And you try to block that stuff off. But eventually it comes to a head. And that's, that's kind of what happened with me. And then I channeled it. You get to a point where you either got to grab the bull by the horns, so to speak, or get run over, right? So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try to do what I can do and learn what I can learn and channel that into helping people with some paranormal problems over the years. And I've did a lot of investigating and helping people with problems and just all of it.
That's awesome. That is really exciting. And then there's a program that you are the producer of, right?
Yes, Night Dreams Talk Radio. I've been the producer of that for, I don't know, 5.5 years. And then my show is also on the network, JC the Hitman Show on Night Dreams Talk Radio. And we can bring a lot of great guests on. And I really enjoy it.
Since you brought this up, 3 years old. So let's talk about what happened when you were 3.
Yeah, I think it was about 3.5, somewhere in that. But so every day I would play with this little Native American Indian boy outside, every day. Well, in the summertime, because when I grew up, your mom was like, you go outside and play all day. It was different time. It was,
Yeah.
but my mom, she'd always cook something for lunch, and she'd say, lunch is ready, and I would say, would you make something for my friend? And she said, well, you know what friend you talking about? But anyway, parents think you imaginary friends. To me, it was a real flesh of, I could see him. It was, we were playing together. And then I would ask him, hey, you want to come in and have a sandwich with me? He would always say, no, I don't want to come in your house. This went on for a while, and I asked him, I said, why won't you ever come into my house? He said, I'm scared of the mean old man in there. And he was right. There was like an old man in there that I would see, but I didn't know no better. I didn't know there shouldn't be a mean old man in my house, but that was another spirit I was intermingling with, and looking back at exactly what it was, but I didn't know that. I couldn't connect these dots. So it came to kind of a head one day. I had just gotten this new Spider-Man comic book, and I went upstairs to show my mom, and then I had to go back. I was going to go back downstairs, and standing at the head of the stairway was this angry old man, but was really a spirit.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
yeah. So now I've got to get by him to get downstairs, but he's standing like, just scowling at me. You know what I mean? Like, oh my.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to get by this guy. So I like gingerly walk, and I try to like scamper by him, and I feel two hands on my back, and down them steps I went, head over heels.
Oh, that's not good.
No, that was horrible. That
I
affected me
love
for a
that.
long. That affected me a long time, believe me. And I was a bloody mess. It was horrible. And that's why that Native American boy would never come in. He was scared of the old guy. And thankfully, it was shortly after that we'd moved out of that house. And I am glad.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know if anybody ever did investigations into that house? Did you when you got older?
No, that house now is tore down. So I don't know the history of it. I'd never really looked into it. I do know that house was close to a lot of Indian mounds and some Indian burial grounds. And I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. Definitely didn't have anything to do with the old grumpy old white man. Maybe he lived there. I'm just assuming. But that was a horrible experience. That was my introduction into the paranormal, even though I didn't even know it was paranormal.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That-
I'm floored by that. That's great because
mine is nope. It's a good thing the house is destroyed. That's my theory. As anybody knows who
Yeah.
listens to the show, I'm like, and no, we're out of there.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
did you start, as you got older, when did you start realizing that this was preternatural or paranormal?
Well, it was probably later on because throughout my life, I've seen a lot of things, but I have seen more shadow people than anything ever. Like I don't know what it is about shadow people, and I've seen tons of them. And even through my adolescence, teenage years, I would see these shadow people, not in just houses. I'm talking about even when I was, a young teenager driving, because we lived in the country. I would see them cross the road in front of me, or I'd see them on the side of the road, and they were shadow people. They weren't people. So I just kind of assumed that a lot of them, I think, were just spirits, just in a shadow form. That's what I'm thinking. And I would see a lot of these things. I've seen a lot of them on investigations everywhere.
to this day.
Yeah, to this day. Yeah,
Yeah.
listen, that's right. Trust me. I've seen shadow people. Oh my goodness, all through. I mean, yeah, even and another thing too. I had another encounter too when I was in my young 20s. I tried to ignore all these sea spirits or whatever every now and again. And me and my cousin, I was living with my cousin and his mother. We were both in our young 20s, same age. And his mother, she had OCD. Like we worked at the same place. We'd come home and we had this giant bedroom. And he was on one end, I was on the other. But she would wash her clothes right away. She just was one of those, and she'd fold them nice and neat. And so every night she'd put them on the stand beside my bed. And every morning my clothes would be clear at the other end of the bedroom by the door on the floor. Right.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah, and I'm thinking of my cousin. What I said to him, why do you keep doing that? He's swearing he's not doing it. And I'm like, something's going on here. This went on for 2 weeks. I lived with him for 2 weeks. And his girlfriend, we lived in this apartment upstairs, and his girlfriend lived downstairs. So every night we'd get home from work, he would go down there and hang out with her until it was time for him to go to bed so he can get up for work in the morning. And our bedroom was right above where him and his girlfriend would hang out down below. So one night, this was 2 weeks in, I'm living there, and this stuff was going on every day. And I'm like, I knew in the back of my head there was a spirit here messing with me, but I didn't want to hear it. I figured if I ignored it, maybe it would go away. So anyway, it come to a head this one night. I say goodnight to my aunt. I go in, I lay down. Maybe 10 seconds, I turn the light off, and I'm going to describe this is what I heard. You ever see them big stainless steel pans? They're like, 3 foot around and 2 foot high.
Yeah.
Picture one of those full of a bunch of other stainless steel pans, and picture somebody slamming it on a oak wood floor as hard as they can. Okay, that is what I heard.
I don't love any of that.
Listen to me. That was so loud. I thought my soul left my body for a minute. Like literally, I turned the light out and just closed my eyes, and that's what I heard right beside my bed. It was so loud. My cousin came running upstairs. He thought the place was falling down or something. My aunt come running in the bedroom. She turned on the light, and I kid you not one thing out of place, right? Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
I'm falling off the ceiling because I literally, I mean, it almost stopped my heart. That was so, you're not expecting something like that, right?
Wow.
To this day, that's one of the most mind-boggling things. I can't explain it. They were blown away by it. The next day I moved out. I couldn't take it there no more. I couldn't. Yeah. I told her. I said, "Look, there's something." And I did do some history on that. There was an older gentleman that had passed away on that land because it used to be kind of a farmhouse long ago, and he was still hanging out there. And for some reason, I don't know. I don't know if he sensed that I could maybe feel or see some spirits once in a while, and he wanted my attention. But I was at that age; I didn't be bothered. And I tell you what, I've never experienced anything like that before. That like something that creates that loud a noise, and it sounded just like I described. Stainless steel pans slammed on a floor, and not one thing out of place. Nothing.
Yeah, we had that happen at the old haunted attraction I used to run. That was a haunted house, and one day I woke up and I swore it sounded like something had crashed through the whole place, and we went through every inch of the place. It was like middle of the night. We went through every inch of the place, and it was nothing. But when 3 people heard it, it sounded like a train wreck, and it was like, nope, nothing. So
yeah, that is mind-boggling. I that sticks with me. That had to be almost 35 years ago. It was like the
ones you don't forget.
No.
Yeah. Well, okay, so
we did have a quick question from Instagram from Chelsea Burton, which was she just said, I always got the impression shadow people were sinister or warning of something sinister when I've seen them. So yeah, do you have any feeling like that when you see them, or is it like a omen, or just?
Well, let me explain it to you. Like in my world, so none of this can be proven. There's opinions, but I'm just saying in my world, in my whole lifetime of 50 plus years, I've kind of categorized them in 3 categories. Maybe it's kind of some of them are interdimensional. Some of them are what I call real evil incarnate. And some of them are human spirits that's just the form maybe they couldn't take, or that's the way they show up. Most of them I've come across is been human spirits. Second most have been the real evil ones, and then the interdimensional things. But that's in my world. But everybody has their own experiences or whatever.
Yeah, it's preternatural stuff we don't understand yet.
We don't, and you can't even prove it. But you know what you're experiencing. And the thing is with these shadow people, I have seen them. Not just alone, but I've had other people with me that have seen the exact same thing that I have. So either we're all hallucinating the same time, the same thing, or there's something to it.
It's interesting because I think that when you're talking about quote unquote shadow people, let's describe that for a second. Because I mean, yes, it's obvious you can go, well, it looks like a shadow. But they talk about Hitman and the hat man is a shadow person with red eyes, but it looks like he has the outline of a particular kind of hat, right, that he's wearing. When you see shadow people, do they generally just look like shadows, or are they a dark shape? Do they have form to them? Like, what are we talking about when we say shadow people?
Well, whenever I see them, yeah, they have shape, they have form. Most of them that I have seen, they look like a person. I mean, really, you can't see details, but it looks like a person. It would look like a regular person if you had a light behind them, shadow on the wall. But I see them. But I've seen them like walking across the road. I've seen them all over. Now, these ones you described with a hat and the red eyes, that kind of borderlines between the real evil incarnate sometimes, most of the times, and then some that is kind of maybe interdimensional. But either way, they're kind of one of them kind of just kind of observes a little bit, but the other one, they do a lot of nefarious things, cause a lot of problems.
So, what is, other than, of course, as a small child being pushed down a flight of stairs, which is terrifying in itself, what has been your scariest encounter that you truly feel was? And I know the clanging, that was very loud and stuff, but what was something that literally scared you?
There's been so much. I've seen a lot of things. More shocking and scaring. The thing that probably scared me most was at being that child, feeling that in my back going down head over heels. Because he was standing at that top of the stairs, and the anxiety had built so bad because I had to make a dash by him to get downstairs, and that was horrible. And then he gave me the coup de grace, so to speak, with the push, and it was like it was so hard for me to go back up down them steps afterwards. Like it was just that was really hard. It was
Oh
scary.
man.
That
Yeah,
was rough. That was probably
yeah.
the scariest, honestly. I've learned to overcome being scared. I get shocked, like when them pans hit. I was so shocked that I thought my heart was going to stop. Now I've been with 3 people one time and witnessed something that kind of manifested inside a glass bookcase that we witnessed. And we weren't drinking on drugs. It was just one of those things. It was one of those things. I think the evil spirit was trying to distract us because we were trying to get rid of it. And they will do whatever they can to distract you, to throw you off your game. They don't want to leave, and I think it was like a parlor trick, so to speak.
Yeah, that's we.
No.
Erika, I was waiting for the nope. Yeah, Erika's done.
And I would be out. I don't care, parlor trick or not. I'd be like, you may burn this place to the ground. We will be out.
You've also done. I mean, you're like me. You don't just do ghosts. You do a little bit of everything. You've talked Bigfoot. You've gone UFO hunting. I think, if I recall.
UFO hunting. How do you hunt UFOs? Out of curiosity.
Well, more or less, just watch the sky. There's a lot going on, and if you got like some night vision stuff, you wouldn't believe the stuff you can see that you can't see with your naked eye, just with the night vision, looking in the air, looking in the sky. Honestly, in 2019, broad daylight. Matter of fact, it was in July, almost 5 years ago now. Well, I only live a couple blocks up the street from a store. I thought, let me, get out, get some exercise. Let me walk up to the store. And something just told me to look up in the sky. And I looked up and I seen, I'm telling you, to the T, one of the white Tic Tacs, like they describe in all them documentaries. It's been all over the place. It was a white Tic Tac. It was going along. It went behind the cloud and never came back out behind the cloud. I don't know if it turned and went in such a direction that it was, the cloud was between me and it, but it never came back out. And it was one of them white Tic Tacs.
We talked to the lady who recorded that, with the Navy pilot who got the Tic Tac video. We talked to her at Encounter Quest over in other side of North Carolina, and she was incredible. And when we talked to a couple of our contacts in the intelligence community about her, all they would say is, yes, she's credible. Yes, she's credible. That's all they would say. I was like, well, do you have any comments about the footage? She's credible.
Yeah, that's right. And those documentaries where they show that recreation of the Tic Tac, that is what I saw. It was weird. I gotta tell you, it was weird.
Yeah,
I just want to point out that I love that the aliens chose a shape that looks like a breath mint.
Well, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think I don't think those are off world. I think those are ours, but don't get it wrong. I think we reverse engineered a lot of these military subcontractors. There's a bunch of them out there. Think about it. I think reverse engineered some craft, and they've had years to do this, and I really think that's man-made, especially the ones that got, they got pipes on them, or they got rivets on them, or something coming off of them. I just think I think they're ours. And what a better way to, take them out to blow the rust off of them than, mess with the U.S. Navy once in a while.
and and honestly, I think that's kind of one of the things that we've noticed with these is that we think it's, again, reverse engineer. The whole Bigelow Aerospace, all that, man. That's a whole nother episode. We'll have to dig into that. Beau, put that on the deep dive.
You're
I'll
having
get
her do the clackety clacks.
clackety clack. I'll get the cork board up. We'll do the red lines.
Yeah.
We'll get it all going. So 37th parallel. Just trust me. We'll get into that another day.
Oh, X is gonna love you. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh gosh.
poking the badger with a stick. JC, so my question for you then is cryptid wise, Bigfoot, what about other cryptids? Because we talk a lot about Bigfoot and obviously Mothman and stuff like that. I love the lesser known cryptids. So where do you go down on your hunts?
I don't have as much time anymore, but I've been out looking. I don't know so much for Bigfoot other than just join a hike, because I think if you're actually looking for those things, you're probably not going to see them.
Yeah.
I've had an encounter, and this was back in the early 80s. I've told this before on our regular show, but there's not much to it really. There was 4 of us. I think we were like juniors in high school. We were out enjoying some beverages, and we're in the middle of nowhere because, I'm sure you know where Salt Fork is, between there and where Living Country is, in the middle of nowhere. And this was like 2:00 in the morning, and back in the, I don't know, early to mid 80s. And we're on the side of this mountain, pretty much little mountain on a dirt road. We thought we'd pull over and take a little break and get some air, so to speak. And we're overlooking this pasture field down below this little mountain we're on. The road's kind of on the side of it. And it's a cow field. There's the closest farm is probably half mile away, and it's Amish. There's nothing but Amish out there. It's probably the closest one. And in the middle of this field is probably a 300-year-old oak tree. Huge. You ever see a 300-year-old oak tree? Like, they're wide. Like, you can't even get your arms around them. So anyway, we're sitting there doing our thing, and we're overlooking this, and it's kind of like misting. And every once in a while, lightning would light up that field. It's not like lightning would strike, but wherever the lightning was, it would light up that field a little bit. Well, the one time it lit it up, and what we saw was probably 8 foot, 3.5 feet wide, either naked, hairy Amishman in the middle of a lightning storm by a 300-year-old oak tree, or maybe it was a Bigfoot. I don't know. All I know is we've seen it. It did it again. It wasn't there. We all got in the car and we split out like the road runner and took off. We didn't say a word to each other. We haven't mentioned it since. I haven't seen any of us. We quit hanging out and everything. It was so weird. It was a weird event. And I look back at it all the time, and it's hard for me to even digest. Could that be a Bigfoot? Because Bigfoot wasn't even on my mind. I didn't know what, back then I thought they were all out west, really.
That was pop culture in the day. They're all in the Pacific Northwest. We didn't even talk about skunk apes or Ohio grassman until the early 90s, 2000s, with the advent of the internet, right? That's
right. And then
here, there's more pop culture then.
Yeah, and it was a couple years after that before Don Keating, a local researcher here, his stuff started, coming to surface in the newspapers and stuff. But like, that was so strange to see that, you know what I mean? And then I've had a couple other, like back in 94, and close to the same area, there were a lot of sightings. People saying they're seeing this and that. And I was like, I told my dad, I said, you know what? I'm going to go out in these woods. I'm going to find out what's going on. So I went out there. I'm out there about a day and a half. And I start hearing these ungodly noises. And that was a lot of the reports of hearing all these crazy, unheard of noises. Couldn't pinpoint it to what this was. Well, it was getting closer and closer to me, so I'm hunkered down behind this big deadfall of an old cherry tree, and it's getting closer, and we're going to come to a head. So, like, me and whatever this is, we're going to be face to face here in a minute. so I'm buckling up for what's coming because the noises were just undescribable. So finally, I said, "Screw it, it's going to happen." So I came up over the log, and what I was looking at making all these noises was a peacock. Because what would happen, all these farmers out in the middle of nowhere had these peacocks, and they would get loose, and now they're running wild in the woods out there, and people are hearing these things, and they're thinking it's Bigfoot or something, some kind of cryptid, but it was these peacocks because they make some crazy noises.
They do. I have one on a farm just across from me, and I'm in
They
the
make
woods of North Carolina, Western North Carolina, and Smokies. And when you hear that thing at 2 a.m, you're like, "What? Is it a woman being murdered?" No, it's just
I'm telling you, and people weren't used to that except for the ones that had them, but they got loose all over the place because of
yeah.
storms or whatever, and that's what that was. What that was.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that peacocks can fly.
Yeah,
People
Yeah.
keep forgetting they're not like penguins, but they can actually fly.
yeah,
There's a neighborhood in Florida near a friend of mine, and the peacocks, there was a peacock farm there, but they flew over the gate and they're loose and they're on people's roofs and
That's
screaming, and they scream. Their calls sound like somebody screaming. And I think it's interesting because I talked about on another episode that there was a frog that I saw that's sort of golden in color in Florida. And it sounded like a child was screaming outside my window. And I finally went outside and I couldn't, I'm like, well, there's nothing out here yet. It's something keeps screaming. And then finally got the flashlight, looked around, and there's this little like beige frog, and it screams. And that's what its cry sounds like. So I think it's really, as much as we want to see all these things that are very fantastic and Bigfoot and all this other stuff, there are some, it's like if you've never heard of Tasmanian devil, why they got named Tasmanian devils, YouTube what this sounds like. Because if you were alone in the dark woods traveling and you heard these things and they fight with each other and sound like that, you would literally think you were going to perish at any moment.
Yeah.
Like something big was about to eat you.
Yeah.
So true. And I try to debunk these things, or at least try to find the answer more than debunking.
Right.
Word. And I'm going to tell you something else. A lot of people report Mothman flew over the car or they walked under a. Listen, I could very easily see how a peacock roosting in a tree and you spooked it and took off flying. It was dark or close to dark. You would think that was a Mothman or something. I mean, really, because they're big.
In North Florida in the Kingsley plantation, they kept saying they have a spirit there called Old Red Eyes, and then they kept trying to say, "Oh no, it's just it's this albino possum that hangs out in the trees," and it's like I could see that, but yeah, it doesn't match all the things.
Right.
But then they did find the albino possum, and it was like okay, and then they had an albino peacock there too. So it's like okay, there's something going on in that area anyway. But that was. Yeah. It's funny how you can debunk, but then you're also like, wait a minute, there's still something weird going on.
So, right. Right. And, another thing too, that I discovered here, because Ohio back, especially in the 90s, there was no bobcats are not supposed to be here, but they're here. I've got trail cam pictures of 18 different bobcats, and they're not supposed to be in the state, especially back in the 90s. And I'm going to tell you something. Bobcats can make some ungodly noise, especially when two of them see each other. Oh my goodness. You'd think somebody's dying or it was horrible. But anyway, that was another, people are hearing these things and reporting it as, oh, it's this or that,
Okay, we need to take a quick break and we will be right back. Technically, we're not going anywhere, but we're going to be quiet for 2 seconds.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The haunting is over. With international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
Greetings, travelers. Now available on Audible and other audiobook platforms, Eerie, Appalachia. Join us, won't you, as we discuss creatures like the Popelick Monster, the White Things, the Snallygaster, the Wampus Cat, the Lizard Man of Skateboard Swamp, Bunnyman Bridge, and the Ohio Grassman. All these creatures and more await you if you dare listen to Eerie, Appalachia, presented by Mark Muncy, History Press, and Four Horsemen Publishing.
We're back. Okay. So I agree with you. I think nature is a very interesting thing because it's so easy for people to discount it. But I would look up the creatures that are in your area and just listen to the sounds that they make, because you have no idea. Like I said, this little teeny frog screaming outside the window sounded like a child being heard.
And a lot of people use those apps. I know we're notorious for using one of the apps that does the bird calls, because I'm like, hey, what is that bird? And I go all over. I've downloaded every bird in the world, but it doesn't do peacocks. It doesn't do anything it won't even do chickens, because those are domesticated. So you're not really looking for those. So the app shouldn't do those. But when you're in the woods at night and you're like, what is that sound? And then it's like, no animal, no bird. It could be something simple, but yeah, still be on alert. Be on alert, because it could be something else.
Right. Even chickens can fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, people forget that, especially at you. Roosters. Roosters can chase you. Have you ever?
Oh, yeah. So let me tell you something. When I was younger, me and my sister, she was, I don't know, she got a divorce or something. We was living together for a little bit. And this apartment she had, the neighbor had a daggone rooster. And I had this car, and I'd have to tinker on it every once in a while. And every time I'd be under the hood, I'd feel something just stabbing me from my ankles up to about the middle of my back. Right? It was that rooster. It was spurring me. As soon as you turn your back on it, would spur you all the way up from your backside. Oh, it was just scary, like dickens out of you.
No, animals are weird. So let's talk a little bit about some of the stories you've heard, because you've obviously been collecting stories for some time from people and interacting and helping them. What is some of the more bizarre stories that you've been presented with?
Oh, goodness. There's a lot of them. I've actually experienced a lot of the stories because of being on cases with, trying to help people with issues and stuff. But, oh, boy, there's so many. I'm like, the one story close to my house here, back in the 1800s, there was this couple, and the lady was cheating on her husband with another guy. And so anyway, the lady found out, and she poisoned the lady, and she ended up killing her. So then she ended up burying her, and she got her relatives to help burying her. But then she got paranoid about a week later, because now there's witnesses and somebody's going to find out. So they ended up digging her up, a week later, and they ended up throwing her in the river, which is about half a mile from my house. And ever since then, every now and again, people have seen a wet-looking, real bad-looking lady standing by the road by the river every once in a while. That's just right up the street from me. And a lot of people have reported that one. A lot of people over the years.
That definitely sounds like a soul that is not at rest.
Yeah, and I believe her name was Mary Cernoff or something like that.
You've seen her?
I seen a spirit a long time ago, and I didn't know nothing about this story. I don't know if it was her. I can't say it was her, but I seen one that fit the description. It was about 2 a.m. on that road. I was coming home, and I double looked, and then I didn't see it again, but it fit that description. Again, I didn't know about that story till I learned about it afterwards, but it could have been. I know there's been a lot of reports of it. There's another local legend here, and tons of reports on this one. And this one here is called a Warlock's Grave. It's a grave. It's close by where this and again, back in the 1800s, this guy was a warlock and he had a coven of female witches, and they found him guilty and ended up killing him. They beheaded him and they buried him. When they did, they put his head at his feet. And the legend goes that every year the head gets a little closer up to where it's supposed to be. When it finally gets there, he's going to rise again. And there's been tons of reports of the ghost of the coven witches all over the place. There's been reports of his ghost all over. And we're talking 100+ years of these reports. Now, I've never seen anything along those lines, but there's a lot of people I've seen stuff that is associated with that lore.
That's interesting. How far back was this legend supposed to be?
That one, I don't know. I can't remember the exact date, but it was in the 1800s. It was called Warlock's Grave.
It's interesting to me because I wonder how much of that is true warlocks, right? True witches,
Right.
versus, that time period where people just assumed if you weren't X, you were a witch or a warlock or whatever,
Yeah.
There's so many false claims of that. And me and Mark were just talking the other day because bubonic plague has been found in the country. And we were like, do not get rid of the cats. How to get things under control. Everybody's a witch, everybody's a warlock. But it makes me wonder, are they stuck, or is there just some ghosts that were like, you know what? There's this great legend. Here's what we need to be appearing as.
Right.
Let's do this. I wonder if they're like young spirits, like teenagers that are like, do the witch thing again. It freaks them out.
Right. Yeah. Again, there's probably a little truth in it with most legends and lores, but you know how it's like the telephone game on steroids over 100+ years. It grows legs, so to speak, and things get added and embellished and whatever. Yeah. Another perfect example is the vampire from Rhode Island, Mercy Brown.
Right.
They had TBs. What happened? And when they would dig up the graves, and say, "Oh, the fingernails growing, all this," but really the body's shrinking. It's not growing. So it looks like it grew because the rest of the body around it shrunk. So that causes paranoia. They were taking the hearts out and crushing them and eating them and burying them and burning them, and it was just caused a lot of hysteria.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And then we have so many, when we travel all around, and it's so many witches' graves and witches this and warlocks this and warlocks that, and it looks really creepy. So suddenly made a legend about it. It's just like those vampire graves. Everybody's, it's a vampire grave. No, it was to keep looters out, not to keep somebody in. I love how history twists these things.
It does. And I've seen some of them. There's been a vampire, something's going on. When you see a grave that has like a jail, you ever see the ones that got like bars above ground that's going down? There's something going on with that.
Yeah,
They're trying to keep.
Yeah, like I said, that's usually to keep thieves out from grave robbing. But then, of course, the legend becomes, that was to keep the guy in because he's so dangerous. He was the ghost of a werewolf or whatever. And I love that one in Kentucky where he's a werewolf grave. It's like, no, he's not. But okay, cool. Yeah. Because his name's Talbot, which means, of course, it has to be the werewolf from the wolf.
Yeah, his first name was Lawrence, too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And but then we do get the real stuff too, because there is, the odd stuff too. But man, okay. So you've been doing your show a long time, and you've had who's been some of your favorite people you've had a chance to interview?
I've had a lot of well-known guests, great guests. Some of the great guests aren't maybe necessarily well-known, but I've enjoyed all of them. I mean, I don't know. I've had Dave Schrader on, a lot of people you see on a lot of these TV shows. I've had Sean Austin on recently, Lori Johnson, Patty Negri, she's been on the show. A few of the ghost hunters, the more better famous ones on the shows there. The Alvis guy's been on my show. Marston's been on my show. Keith Johnson's been on. Just a whole wide range of some people come on. This week I've got Andrew Bashago. He's known as a time traveling lawyer.
He ran for president. I voted for him.
Yeah, 2016. He did. Yeah.
He got one vote in Florida. That was me, gang, because I wasn't voting for anybody else. I'm like, this guy's a time traveler. He gets my vote.
Right. Yeah. We're going to be talking about missing people, and is there a cryptid connection with some of the missing people?
Nice. Tell him I said hi, and he got my vote in Florida.
I'll let him know.
Well, so this is something we don't talk about a huge amount, but what is it like for you to do debunking? Me and Mark, one of our things is there's stuff we absolutely can't prove one way or the other, but like the moment SpaceX launches everything, we get 80 million emails of pictures of this, UFO, and we have to go, that's SpaceX. That's oh my gosh, Starlink.
Yeah.
That's what I'm meaning to say. And
Yeah.
so we have to say that. So we always ask our travelers now, can you, before you send us that video of that, UFO that you just saw, could you look to see if Starlink may be launched? Because that's probably it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what is it like for you doing debunking? Because for a lot of people, these things are really real, but then you have to go, well, here is the trail cam of the bobcats that are fighting in your backyard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I've always said, if somebody wants to see Bigfoot, they're going to see him. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that mindset. People are looking for something. Everything they see is what they're looking for, and that's just not true. Even when you're looking for ghosts or whatever, most of the time you're not going to see nothing. Nothing's going to happen. It's very boring, actually. but
Yep.
but stuff does happen, and pictures is the thing. For me, if I'm taking pictures, I like to take 3 in a row. Because if you find something on one of them and it's not on the other two, then it's good. That helps kind of validate and maybe something there. But the thing that really gets me when you say about debunking is orbs. People, they'll get things on their camera. They'll say, well, I couldn't see it with my eye, but look at them, all of these orbs on my picture. And I am here to tell you, I have researched this and done this many years. Most of that stuff, you got humidity in the air, the way the light hits it, it will look like a ton of orbs, but it's not. Bugs, dust, you name it. Listen, if you can see an orb with your naked eye, that's an orb. And
Yeah.
I've seen about 4 in my life, and most of them, I've got one on video from a case I was on, but they kind of undulate and they have their own light source, so to speak. They're very weird looking, and you can see them with your naked eyes. If you can't see with your naked eyes, it only appears on your camera. It's probably not an orb. It's probably something else.
And we get that a lot, but especially with the security cams, the blink cams and all
Yeah.
that. They show those, and it's like, oh, look, I got this weird thing, and it's probably a bug. Hate to disappoint you, but
Yeah.
you never know. It's good to have, and it is documentation. Document. If it keeps coming back, then you might have something there. And
Yeah.
we've been to haunted locations where orbs are everywhere, and it's like, okay, but it's still dust. And then I've been to other locations where, okay, this is supposed to be a dead zone, and yet we're getting orbs. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, orbs is one of those. It's a tough call, gang. It's a tough call.
Yeah. And one of the things, if I don't really try to debunk, but one of the things I just try to find out what's going on, and like however they filmed it on, try to find out what they used, like what was the weather conditions and just different variables that may have caused that, other than what they're saying it could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hate the flashlight technique. That's the one that always upsets me. I'm like, you're talking to humidity. Sorry, gang. I hate to tell you,
Yeah.
you're talking to humidity. But that all said, it's good that a team is there. Good that people are investigating, and hopefully you get something a bit more solid. But yeah, go ahead, everybody. Just this, I'm going to make a stand. The flashlight game where you just make it just so it can just stop that. Stop that. It's not ghosts. It's humidity. Thank you.
Again, there's so much going on, and that's the other thing. You can't really prove it. You try to gather different experiences and have many people see different things at the same time, because when it's all said, you really can't. Like, I've got a picture of a spirit. Honestly, I took 3 in a row, and the middle one, you can see it. It's not. You might think it is. Like, you can see it looks like a whole body just standing there looking at you. But how do you prove it other than it's just something on a picture? I know there was nobody else there. But, somebody can say, well, who knows? Maybe it was somebody there, because they weren't there. You can't, it's hard to get something down that is just open and shut proof when it comes to spirits. You just can't do it.
No, it's true. And I kind of wonder sometimes too, is like, do we inherently need the proof so that somebody else confirms what we're thinking versus
Right.
being
Right.
willing to just accept what we're thinking? Because, if we accept what we're thinking and have it be real for us that happened, it's kind of interesting where the line becomes, I need to have this thing, because it's also like the flashlight thing is whether or not they're getting yes or no's, but what conversation are you having exactly? Like, what are you trying to resolve with this conversation you're trying to have with a ghost?
Right.
Does it
And
work like that? Like, do you need to because you're trying to help them, whatever? Are you able to do that? Like, or are you
and
just trying to understand, maybe while they're haunting the place, as if they couldn't lie to you to begin with?
that's a good point. I say that all the time. But and here's the other thing, like I don't need proof for anything. And that's the thing. And people, the thing with the paranormal that I have found, people get addicted to it. Okay. They get addicted to the thrills of it. Me, I can walk away from it. I'm good for the rest of my life. I'm okay. But people don't. They get addicted to it and they watch these shows and then they do things. And next thing you know, they've done invited something into their life unbeknownst to them. And listen, talking to spirits, whether it be on a spirit box or a Ouija board or whatever it is, you, even if it's unbeknownst to what you're doing, you are inviting them into your life. You are opening up a line of communication. And like you just brought up a good point, there's no golden rule that says that these spirits have to be honest with you. Not at all.
No.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, they could lie and say, yes, I'm your Aunt Bertha. I miss you and all that. And you know dang well it's not. It's something just waiting to pounce on you or cause a lot of mischief in your life.
It's true because the other thing is we don't know how these things are able to access information and what information are they able to access. Like because they're not, it seems like they're not as much on the physical plane from just my own personal observation as well. How do they get information? Are you thinking about the fact you want to contact Aunt Bertha? And then it goes, hey, how you doing? And,
Yeah,
you know,
right. And here's the other thing: ghosts don't have vocal cords, so how are they leaving EVPs?
That's another one of those that to
Right.
me, it's like the spirit box machine that just flips radio channels. I'm sorry, you're talking to radio channels. That's why I'm not a big fan of those either. I think,
And here's another question I've often asked. When people die, yeah, their spirits die, might come back, but granted, their clothes and they may have some horrible fashion sense, but their clothes didn't die, so why are they even dressed?
oh, I've got that one explained. Ghost cosplay.
yep, she's
Okay.
They dress up
Erica,
whatever they want to dress.
Erica's convinced, like whenever it's a celebrity ghost, oh, this building's haunted by Abraham Lincoln, this building's haunted by Marilyn Monroe or Babe Ruth or Al Capone. It's usually just some other ghost dressing like that famous person so that they get attention.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Yeah.
I hands down. If I become a ghost, I'm going to be the Marilyn Monroe of ghosts. I might be the Lady Gaga. I'll have to wait for her to pass. Like, I mean, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do T Swift. That's who I'm going to be. I will spirit cosplay as Taylor Swift. Now, of course, I'm going to have to wait because she can't be alive at the time. But whenever if I'm a ghost, whenever that happens, that's going to be my goal. Because imagine the amount of attention and the amount of people who will come hunting for the Taylor Swift of ghosts. And I'm going to be like, look at me. Here I am.
Yeah, you're gonna get all the attention.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. I think it's a very interesting thing because I think there are legitimate experiences, but we're assuming they play by the same rules that we're playing by, and I don't think that's accurate. I don't think they do play by the same rules. And that's if they're even spirits and not something else that you're talking to.
That's right. And who's to say that there's even a such thing as time on the other side? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
maybe the present, past, and the future is all into one. And who's to say that some of these spirits that you're seeing or having experiences with, who's to say it's not another universe bleeding over into ours?
Right. That's a new prevailing theory. It's starting to take some traction is the whole parallel lines and we're blurring over. And that's some of the things. So,
right. We just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, there's a whole math thing. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to talk about it right now, but there's a whole math thing where there's another universe where time's running backwards, and it makes scientific sense that it's doing that. And it's like, oh my gosh, I think that's something out of an old Red Dwarf episode. But I'm like, but that might explain some Mandela effects. It might explain some of these other things. And it's like,
yeah.
I'm telling you. Tom Cruise had glasses on. Don't get me started on that. That's a hill I'll die on.
And then Dolly had braces in Moonraker, so we're good.
Our Mandela effects.
Oh, yeah. No, I've experienced one that really bothers me really bad because I lived it. and they're telling me it didn't never existed.
Oh, what's that one?
Tell us, because this happened with the Challenger explosion. Because I remember exactly where I was when that got announced. Like, I can put myself in that classroom when that whole thing got announced, and now they're saying it was in '86, and for me it was in '84, and I'm not even kidding. Like,
Well, I can tell you it was in '86. That I know because I know right where I was when it happened.
in your reality it was.
Yeah, in my universe it was. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. In my world, it was '86. I know because where I was, and I was at my mom's house, and I know where she lived in '86, and that's where I was at the time visiting her, and that's when it happened. As I looked up, and there it was.
So, what's your Mandela effect?
Mine is the Monopoly guy.
Oh yeah.
With the monocle.
Yeah, because I used to collect Monopoly games, old ones back in the '70s, and I mean that's when I started collecting them. But it was like way back, and new ones, and then in the '80s, we used to play all the time. But I was in this Monopoly game tournament, okay, and you had to win the best out of 7 from one person to advance to the next. This tournament took like 4 or 5 months to complete.
I would say so, because those games can take forever. I was like, this sounds like the longest tournament in the history of the world. But go ahead.
It took like 5 months to complete it. They wanted to make sure they had the right winner. Okay. So, but anyway, this was like the mid '80s. And I would wear my lucky flannel shirt. And whenever I was about to win, I had a eyepiece I would keep right here in this pocket. And I would put on just to bust some balls, right? Listen, I was young and cocky. I would pull it out to bust some balls. I put that eyepiece in. They hated people. My competition hated it. They hated me for that, right? I was like the bad guy of wrestling. They hated it. And I won that tournament, right? When I won, and now they're telling me this never happened. I never had this eyepiece. I'm telling you, I lived it. I had it. And I've looked at every game I've got now. It's not there. It's not on any of the graphics anywhere.
Yes. Well, again, 84 in my timeline. That's what I'm going to call it, in my timeline.
Dolly had braces in Moonraker.
No, I agree with you on that, braces, because I watched that movie, and that was the whole connection between the two. Because when she smiled, she had the braces, and that made him. He fell in love right away.
Yeah, and that's why it makes sense. If that's not there, it doesn't make sense.
Make sense. You're exactly right. And I watched that movie when it aired, and that was the whole thing. Nobody knew when she opened up and there was braces, and he was like, his world was on fire. That was his level of life, because he had braces.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my God.
The dimension must be emanating from. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left, Mark. So what is the last piece of sizzling fun that we want to do?
Well, I want to ask real quick, if you had a bucket list location and a bucket list team, who would it be and where would you go?
Well, it's obviously the Eerie Travels team.
Well, besides us.
Right. Well, the place I would always wanted to go to is that Hoyo Baciu forest in Romania. There's so much there. And the person I would love to investigate with would be Johnny Zaffis.
Oh yeah,
that guy knows his stuff. And I've done a lot of similar things that he's done, like remove haunted objects and things like that. So I can relate to him. I think it'd be fun to investigate with him in that forest, because that forest is off the hook.
I was there when it was still communist Romania, and
God.
It was I was 88, 89, right before the fall, and it was crazy. And I was going to Dracula's castle, and then he's like, "Oh, you like the spooky places? I'll take you." My guide was like, "I'll take you to this forest." And then as I'm in the forest, he's telling me all the stuff that happened here. I'm like, "Oh, this is fun."
Yeah. Yeah, right. Listen, there's everything goes on in that forest.
Yeah, it's got everything: werewolves, vampires, ghosts, Strigoi.
It's got UFOs and cryptids.
UFOs, yeah, and my goodness, it was everything. And that was back, I was just getting started, 88, 89. So
yeah, it's got that circle in the middle of the forest that doesn't grow any trees.
Yep, nothing. It's like Tunguska was, just something hit there, and and nothing else grows. So
that's so strange. Yeah.
It was dead quiet too. And the fact that there were wolves as big as Volkswagens, that was bad enough. I'm like, all right, and let alone
Listen,
KGB was following us. I'm like, yeah, I
Mark,
don't need this.
let me tell you something. If you're going to Dracula's castle and you're in a wagon, you got wolves following you along the side. Don't you ever watch them old Dracula movies?
Oh yeah, I do. No, I was living it, man. I was living it, but
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we're going to have to wrap up soon. JC, it was so wonderful to actually finally meet you. Mark said nothing but amazing things about you. So I'm so glad you got to be on here with us.
and we're gonna have to be on his show at some point. So we're
Yeah.
definitely
We will
Yeah.
work that out. JC, how do
look at
people
me
find you?
self-invite.
Yeah. No, yeah. We have to get you on. Book comes out, let me know.
So how do people find you, JC?
Well, you can find me every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. See JC the Hitman Show on Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. I'm on most of the major apps, Spreaker app or whatever. Or you can catch me on Facebook or TikTok or X. Or you can go to my website, jcthehitmanshow.com. Also, I'm going to be at Gretchen's Fest August 11th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'll have a little booth there with some, T-shirts and just some fun stuff.
Very cool. Well, thank you again so much for being on here. And with that, Mark, I'm ready for the most epic of departures from you.
All right. Well, thanks again, gang, for tuning in to this live. And for those of you listening on the podcast, we thank you for tuning in. And as always, liking and sharing and subscribing, and invite your friends if you enjoyed if you saw. We had a listener tale last time where they were talking about how their friend had introduced them to it. So that's what we want, is spread the word so we can get more tales and more places to go visit, more places to learn about. And we appreciate that so much, gang. And thanks to all our Patreon members to help keep this show on the road. Thanks to our sponsors. Oh my gosh, please visit them. Buy all their things. It's amazing. Destiny Beard's got a new thing out. It's not a new thing, but to me it was new. I had missed it, where she did a thing called The Haunting Is Over with Sam Haines. So definitely give that a download. It's amazing. And with that, gang, I will just say, tune in to all your favorite podcasts. Listen to these stories. Listen to these amazing experiences. And Night Dreams Talk Radio, they're an amazing network. Give them a shot and listen at any time. But definitely check out JC's show. And when you're listening and you're driving along, make sure you watch out for naked Amishmen flashing in the thunder. And we will see you on the other side.